Hello and welcome everyone to Edge Talk Radio. My name is Angela Zabel, that's me, and today we're
Mm.
going to be talking with Albert Bramante and Bramante, and we are talking about the fear of growth mindset. And he is a mindset expert along with so much more as we get into it. He's from New York, and I can't wait to start this one. And today, who am I? My name is Angela Zabel. I have connected to spirit working with a team in the non-physical my entire life, sharing messages from a multitude of realms with people. I'm a teacher, coach, medium, radio show host, retreat host, writer, gallery reader, and doing speaking engagements, offering guidance, mediumship, intuition, and it's also with online and private group sessions, classes, and the Amplified Universe monthly membership. This is a group about growing our connection to us, our world, all that is around us, and our role in it. You can find out more about me at angelazabel.com and pretty much on all the social media aspects. And today, I'm going to try to get this in here. Let's see if we get this right. We are here with Edge Magazine. It is the leading events and media resource dedicated to all aspects of holistic living, health, wellness, and the mysteries beyond, sharing information, wisdom, and resources committed to promoting businesses, organizations, and individuals who support our collective journey to wholeness and balance. They're currently distributed in 30 states plus Canada, with over 17,000 magazines per printing, along with a vibrant online magazine with over 42,000 people reached per month. You can have the magazine shipped to your door, stay up to date with the newsletter, become a drop spot, and you can check out Kelly Wagner on the Being Curious show. And you want to check out more about Edge Magazine, go to edgemagazine.net. And today we are here with Albert Bramante, and he is a talent agent, a performance psychologist, and mindset expert who spent over 20 years helping high performers, both in the entertainment industry and beyond, conquer their mental roadblocks. He has a Ph.D. in psychology and certifications in hypnosis and NLP. He bridges the gap between talent, business, success, and the psychology of peak performance. You can find out more about Albert at albertbramante.com, and it is ALBERTBRAMANTE.com. It's also Facebook, LinkedIn, so much more. Check out more about him. And also, when you go on his website, you will find hypnosis. He has audio collections, public speaking mastery, social ease, leadership potential, all about addictions, anger management, body, image, fears, phobias, leadership, money, motivation, relationships, and so much more. You definitely want to check on his website. And again, his website is albertbramante.com. And Dr. Albert, I am so happy to have you here today. I've got to ask, how did you get into the growth mindset with your background?
Well, thank you so much for inviting me here, Angela. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm happy to have this, conversation with you in the audience. So, I always was interested in the human mind, and as a child and teenager growing up, I was very often a deep thinker, and I always gravitated towards really deep topics. So, the one thing that that's what I would say is that I was always interested in the arts and also interested in the mind and the human mind and what makes people tick. So I was reading a lot of books. I was an avid reader, still am, and so books were very important to me. And I read a lot about the mind. I read a lot about the psychology, and so it was really in high school, my sophomore year in high school, that I declared that I was going to be a psych major.
Oh, interesting.
And, that's what I did. But I was also, very much involved in high school and college clubs and organizations. And so I was involved in a drama club in high school, and then I took some acting classes as electives in college. And I enjoyed just the creative energy and just being around, the theater professionals and theater people. And so that was really what brought me to landing, more, opportunities. And so throughout even in grad school, I was very much, always curious. And so I found myself after graduating, working, in New York City at first in the mental health social services sector. This is right around the time 9/11 had happened. So I was doing some crisis intervention, counseling, advocacy work, with different organizations, including the American Red Cross and the New York Mental Health Association. And through my tenure and time there, I found myself alongside of like filmmakers and actors and so that kind of resurrected or brought my interest back from my college days. And so it was easy for me to notice how quickly I went back into the field, my love of acting. And now it was like, well, this is a great opportunity, is it not, to be pursuing acting again. And so that's what I did. And so I went into becoming, did my brief stint, as most people in the entertainment professionals work, we start out in front of the camera, but soon realized the magic for me was behind the camera. The magic for me was working with actors, was being around actors.
And that's really interesting that you took your psychology and your love of acting and the arts and putting that all together and then wanting to be that support. And how did you were in psychology when you were in the acting business and working with the actors, did you also see the correlation of mindset with acting, with, say, how successful they were, or if they had issues with different things? Could you help them work through that? How did that work for you?
Yeah, well, when I first, I mean, it was a gradual process in that space. So when I started working, when I transitioned from in front of the camera to behind the camera, right, 2004-ish, I started uh, my first company. And so I started representing actors in 2004. And the one thing that kept coming up, over and over again consistently, where there were a lot of actors that were, either giving up or even engaging in self-sabotage. And when I mean by self-sabotage, getting in their own way. And so that was definitely something that was really busy for me, and was really, really occupying for me. So um
When you're working with people that were self-sabotaging, how was it were they identifying their self-sabotaging or were they just having difficulties? Because a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, I guess I'm trying to get this more into like regular people too. We may self-sabotage without realizing what we're self-sabotaging on. Was that something that you also focused on to find what they were self-sabotaging with?
Yeah, I mean the what I was seeing was like the behavioral manifestations of
Mm,
that, and that means like missing appointments, being late, not being prepared, sometimes not showing up and completely blowing off appointments, and
mm.
really, and this industry is very, very competitive, extremely competitive, and
Interesting.
so what can really happen here is actors can sometimes get in their own way, and I wanted to kind of figure out what was going on there, and that while I was doing this I was going also back from a PhD, and for a PhD program we have to do a large dissertation.
Yes.
And so for me I had to solve a real world problem,
Mm,
and what that looked like for me was um what I contributed that is I wanted to focus on the actors I was working with, like what's really going on here.
yeah.
You
And
know
did you
what? Mhm.
did you find that they were welcoming of trying to figure out what the issue was, or was it more of a struggle to find what the issue was with them?
Um, yeah, I mean the one thing that kept coming up was fear
Mm,
And so what I did for my um, study is I looked at fear of success. I looked at self-efficacy. I looked at personality factors. And the one thing that kept coming up was lack of a growth mindset or lack of
mm,
a um, both a business mindset, which is part of like the growth mindset, but also a lack of emotional resiliency, emotional stability.
mm.
And that was the biggest thing that I found out. The biggest finding that kept coming up over and over again in my doctoral study was the high emotional instability, anxiety, coupled by a low, conscientious or business-minded area. So it was when those combinations worked together that that really came up as.
And as you've been going through this, I know you've helped a lot of people and just helping, I think identifying, has that been the thing that's helped the most is identifying to even notice what the behaviors are? Or has it been something different than that?
For me, the first step is to acknowledge that this is happening. Because
Mhm.
the sneaky thing about self-sabotage is it's very often not a conscious, realization.
Yes.
And so the major half the battle is first of all acknowledging that's a possibility. That's half the thing that we need to work through is okay, am I engaging in self-sabotaging? Well, yes, I am. Okay. So then what is the next implementation that I need to do?
And that's something, it's interesting you're saying to just recognize that, to acknowledge, not just recognize, but to acknowledge that you may be self-sabotaging yourself because I think that's important for people to hear because a lot of times we don't even realize we're doing it. And to acknowledge that pattern is so key as we go forward. And as you've been working with these people and has it also been, I'm just going to ask, did you also see patterns of self-sabotage in your own life as you were going through this? Or was it more of observing that in others?
Both. It was actually a combination of both, to be quite honest, and to be, vulnerable here. But yes, it was both. And I think that's sort of like what like if you want to use even the spiritual side of things, I think that's what drove me to looking more into this topic because it was something I needed to see. Yeah, because we can all get in our own way. We can own most of the time be our own worst enemy, and that's the one thing that I really learned from all of this is that a lot of times our enemy or our arch nemesis is the one staring at us in the mirror, not other people. We may project that onto other people or attribute that, but in reality, it's a lot of times ourselves that's really holding us back.
And I think sometimes that may be the hardest thing to acknowledge is that we were the ones holding ourselves back. It's really not other people. And as you've gone through this and helped other people with it,
Mhm.
what steps or different things have they done? Have you helped people to kind of work through those steps of self-sabotage?
Well, again, the first step is realizing that it's happening. That's the first major thing, is
Yeah.
to realize that this is going on. That's the first step. The next thing to do is once we know, then we can start to explore why or the how, the why.
Mm.
First do we know, and then we see how this is happening, and then that's what I should have said before the why, how, and then why. Okay, what could be the contributing factors here, the what and the why. So we know now, okay, that this is a possibility. Here's how this is maybe showing up in your life. Okay, what is the next step? Okay, what is the why? Why do you think this is happening? And very often, what I found is self-sabotage is a protective mechanism.
Ah.
But maybe it went or a little bit awry or off the fritz in a sense. But it was still a protective mechanism. So now we got to explore then what is it protecting you from? And most of the time it's fear. I'd say 90, you know, almost 100% of the time it's going to be fear of something. So now
Yeah.
we then have to explore what. let's talk about this fear. And it's oftentimes a breakthrough because most of the time you don't even realize that, at least consciously in the beginning, that there is a fear or possibility of a fear.
You know, that's something really key to understand is a lot of times we don't realize why we're self-sabotaging. We don't understand why we're doing it. And to get to the root of the problem, especially fear, is so huge now, especially as there's a lot going on in the world and people have even more fear and anxiety about sometimes putting themselves out in the public space too. So
Oh,
that's
yes.
something.
Yeah, and that's, I would say, the biggest thing is holding us back is fear of putting ourselves out there. And it may not show up as fear. It might show up as you're tired today. They'll do it tomorrow. Procrastination, classic. Or this opportunity is not worth it. Not worth my time. And then you start. Your mind will create illusions as to why this is not a great idea.
Hmm.
When in reality, it's protecting you from fear.
You know, that's really interesting because a lot of people have the procrastination and they're like, "Oh, you know, I can't do it. I don't want to do it. I'll do it later." And I'm human. I've done it myself.
So have I. So have I. Yeah, I can, you know, give you plenty of examples of doing that. So, and it's okay, and I think that's the one thing that we have to come to conclusion with is that yes, it will happen.
Yeah.
Um, and not to beat yourself up over it. Okay, you this was something you can change, moving forward. And so it's a lot of times just talking yourself through the fear
Yeah.
and learning to push past that, stepping outside of comfort zone, and even acknowledging, like, look, okay, this is maybe messy, this is not going to be comfortable, but at the end of the day, I can still move forward.
Mm. I think that's something important for people to hear is
Hmm.
because you can move past the fear, but not to sit and criticize yourself because you were in it for a while or you need to find a new way around it, and that we all can move forward at the end of the day. And when you're working with people with fear, what are some maybe top things you recommend for people to help work with that fear or procrastination?
Well, I think again, acknowledgement is the biggest thing. And then start setting things on your calendar.
Mm, okay.
Like, today I'm gonna do this, or today, and the important thing is to break things down into steps. One of the frameworks I talk about in my book is a SMART goal system, which
Nice.
is like, sitting, specific, manageable, measurable, and you would start with small goals from there. You'd start with the whatever it is you want to do, and then break it down into little steps, bite-sized pieces. And then every day you accomplish one or two of those small bite-sized pieces. So in just a matter of 1 or 2 weeks, you could be really astronomically ahead of where you were, by taking small but consistent actions. Because a lot of times when people set goals, they do set great goals, but they're too fast. It's like there's a large leap and nothing in between. And that's why a lot of people fail. And then when they get setbacks, instead of saying, okay, I need to move forward, they'll go into that almost that self, um, defeating cycle of, well, or even the self, languishing, what's wrong with me? Why can't I do this? I can't do anything right. And it's not a question of that you couldn't do anything right. It's just you set yourself up way too fast, too soon.
I think that's something really important for people to hear too, is because a lot of times people want to change and they're excited to change, but then they put these huge goals in front of them that just seem astronomical, which in turn end up causing more procrastination and fear of not being able to reach them. I love how you did more of the setting a calendar and having those goals on there, setting the calendar and having small goals, attainable goals that you can reach for to show you're making forward momentum instead of those huge goals. And they're my team is coming in and they're reminding me it's kind of like when people sign up for all of the health and fitness at the beginning of the new year because they're going to change
Uh-huh.
everything. And by the end of January, the place is a ghost town again.
Yeah, well, because a lot of times what we when that happens is most people will say, okay, I'm gonna get in tip-top physical shape by summer. So New Year, I'm gonna enroll in this gym and I'm gonna commit to going 5 days a week. Great, lofty objective. I don't want to deny that. That's great that you want to do that. But if you're the type of person who hasn't really been exercising that much, that might be a stretch. So maybe instead of saying, okay, I'm going to go to the gym five, maybe I'll start going two or three times a week.
And I think that's really key for people because
20,
a lot of people put this big goal. You can't 5 days a week. And I mean, honestly, we're all humans. We work, we do everything else. To have the
mhm.
time and the energy for 5 days a week is a whole nother thing.
I- and not only that, but our bodies need time to recover and repair. And so and there may become a time where, yeah, 5 days a week may be possible, but it may take a while to get there, to that time. And so what we need to do is to understand that there's gonna be there's gonna be obstacles that are gonna in the way. You're gonna get sore, you're gonna get tired, and it's not comfortable to be sore, tired, and overworked and overexerted. So our body is gonna talk our way out of it. And
Yes.
our brain does a wonderful job of doing that. So the main thing is also resisting that, saying, okay, this is possible. So again, even if you set the limit to, initial goals 2 or 3 days a week, and you work through it and work through that discomfort and realize that, you may wake up and say, your brain may tell you, oh, you're too tired to go to the gym, or you're too, you know, you could do it tomorrow, and say that's where you have to fight through and say, no, I'm going to go today. Because I've even talked to a lot of people that are even into heavily into fitness, and they say that most of the time they have to work themselves up to go to the gym,
Mm.
and they're in tip top shape. And even those sometimes have to talk, kind of work through obstacles in their brain about, they'll get that negative self talk. Oh, stay home today, or you're too tired. And that not just we're going to the gym, but even writing or doing some type of work for your business. It really requires a lot of pushing through and saying, okay, the one thing, like if I'm going to borrow from improv, which is my, the acting world, there's a fundamental rule, golden rule of improv called yes and.
Yeah.
So it could be like, yes, I'm tired to go to the gym and I'm going to go work out.
Ah.
Yes, I feel sore today and I'm going to go to the gym. So yes, I am busy and I'm going to find time to go to the gym. So just a word of yes and framework rather than saying, yeah, but I'm tired. There's a big, those little simple tweaks in language can make a world of a difference.
I love how you're saying that, the little tweaks in our language, how it makes such a big difference because I've been feeling and I've been getting information from my team and a lot of it isn't about the huge gigantic changes. It's the small changes. It's the paying attention, being conscious of your words, being conscious of what you're saying. And that feel is so much more powerful. I like how you said, because it would be all before, and for those of you who don't know, as I'm going through this, I am writing on the side because I don't usually, I always take notes because I always ask, what did I learn from my guests? And I also have that in my newsletter too, so people can see what I've learned from my guests. And I really like the fact that you said, before it was yes, but, and now you're looking at yes, and to me, that's a huge difference in your own. psychology and what you're saying to yourself, because it is our own self-talk is self-sabotaging so many times.
It really is. It's amazing how, like you know, we're very conscious that we say the right things to other people and that we're loving towards other people. But what very often is we're not conscious, or not aware of how disrespectful we can be to ourselves, and we're undeniably hard on ourselves. And whether it's our content, most of the time people are very self conscious, like especially if we go to like in the way of content creator. If most people don't like to hear the sound of their voice.
Mm.
I know even for me, like when I first started doing the podcast, like I played one or two back in the beginning, and it was torture. I wanted to, crawl the walls and run out of the room because I'm like, oh, my voice, oh my, the audience is not gonna like it. And meanwhile, people are coming up to me who heard it and said that was a great episode. I'm like,
Yes.
really? Because again, we're listening to our voice in a different lens. It's ourselves. We're not listening to it in the filter of somebody else. And now I've gotten a lot more comfortable. I still am, sometimes I have to turn off that critical side of me, like, why did I say that? Or, I don't like the way I sounded. And to a point where I'm like, no, this is my own story I'm telling myself.
I love that because, our when we first hear our own voices, you hear it somewhere different where you're listening to yourself in a podcast. Sometimes it's like, "Ooh,
Hmm.
what is that really me?" And you kind of
You
go
just
back and
froze for a
forth.
second.
Did I freeze?
But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's really recognizing we are our worst critic. I feel, if you want to ask anybody for who's the worst critic, it's ourselves to ourselves. And it's
Hmm.
changing that rhetoric, changing that inner dialogue that we have. And I think, Albert, you have an amazing voice. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
sharing it with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. And also, and it brings up another point that what we need to start also doing is learning to accept compliments.
Mm,
And
yes.
because a lot of times, even like probably 2 or 3 years ago, if you had said that, I've been like, yeah, but I don't really like it. And I'm like, no, you're not listening. And so part of it is just saying learning to accept a compliment, because that's when you can't accept a compliment, it also sends a message to the other person that you're not secure in yourself. And so I think that's a part of it too, is being able to accept feedback, both positive and negative. Because the one thing about actors when it comes to feedback, a lot of the ones that are like really professional working are going to be welcoming the feedback. You do get some that, especially if they have an inflated ego, that when you try to give them some criticism, they get really defensive and insulted by that.
That is true. And to realize when that happens, it's not you. So don't worry about it. It's where they're at. And moving yourself through that, it is difficult to take. It was difficult for me to take compliments. And I think it's a lot of what we're taught is you're
Hmm.
supposed to be loving and open to other people, but you're supposed to keep yourself in the background all the time. And it doesn't always work that way. And I know you've been pushed out of the background into the forefront. Was that uncomfortable for you, or did you welcome that?
Both. I would say a combination of both. Because when I first wrote my book, the and published it, the one thing that I was kept getting told consistently of, you've got to get on podcasts.
Mm.
You've got to get on podcasts. And all I thought to myself was, no, I and I dragged my feet for a while, and I did one or two, initially, and then I took a break for a while because I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I don't really like this. And then I just really doubled down and went for it this year. and it felt a lot better. But I think it was a combination of like, okay, this is what I really have to do, but at the same time, I welcome the challenge, and it's still a work in progress. And that's the one thing about when you work towards something. It's not like, okay, there's gonna be a magic switch that's gonna automatically make this, from hard to easy overnight. It just becomes more doable. So the one thing I think when we're working towards goals that we need to adopt is small incremental steps, but also learning how to reinterpret failure or mistakes as feedback and opportunities to grow.
That's something really important because we get, I mean,
So
you're
even
going to
if I'm
get
putting out
criticism.
content or things like that, if this doesn't work, absolutely. And sometimes the criticism can be helpful. Constructive. I'm all for that. But then there's also sometimes you're going to get criticism because people are unhappy with their own lives and their own, insecurities, and they're projecting it onto other people. And so I think another skill that it's good to learn is learn to discern or be able to distinguish between what is acceptable constructive criticism or feedback more than just, again, projections or just people being trolls or what they call on the internet. And because there's a number of those out there, that will just like to just stir up um drama on their end. So and then being able to be at a place where you can be open to that, because most people I know that, deep down inside, we want to become better at what we do. Not always be positive,
Yeah.
and hearing things that we may not necessarily want to hear. Um, and that's what makes really a good kind of coach and or friend is someone who can tell you both what's good and what's bad. What you want to hear, what you may not want to hear.
And and you made a really good point about being
So
constructive criticism versus something projected from others. Because there is a lot of criticism that's projected from others that really isn't, it's not constructive criticism, it's that drama criticism trying to tear people down. And I like how you said being able to discern that difference between that. And then
yes, well,
as you've
and
been
that's
doing
a
it,
big thing.
yeah. And so just for other people to know, so the name of your book again is?
It's called Rise Above the Script: Confronting Self-Doubt and Mastering Self-Sabotage for Performing Artists. It's on Amazon. I have it available as a paperback, Kindle, ebook format, as well as an audiobook.
Love that. So I think that's important for people to check out the book because there is much to be learned in it. And I really love the fact that you said, use your discernment on the criticism, if it's, if it's helpful criticism or if it's criticism that's really wants to tear you down. That's a projection of someone else's issues, let's say.
Yeah, exactly. And oftentimes it can be a projection of someone else's issues.
Absolutely. And that's, as you've been going through this, you also talk about using tools like NLP and his hypnosis to help change the mindsets. What can you explain what NLP is and how hypnosis helps with changing your mindset?
Sure. Well, NLP stands for neuro linguistic programming, and what that it was a kind of a model developed in the 70s and mid 70s. Um, and it typically borrows off of principles of psychology and linguistics, language, and how the two combine.
Mm,
The language that we use, with traditional psychology, and how that can get someone to change their perceptions or even rewire their brain and nervous system. Because the one thing that we learned, one of the breakthroughs I would say in modern psychology, even neurology, even is that the brain constantly rewires itself.
Yes.
So we can constantly be changing on a day-to-day basis through the language. So the old world thinking back, I would say, maybe the age and prior was once you were an adult, that was kind of it. You couldn't, there was no hope, for you if you had any, issues that you were stuck. So that's been totally blown out of the water, and we're constantly changing and everything. So, and with hypnosis, it's about working with the subconscious mind, which is really a programming center. So, like going back to again the programming metaphor is like really altering the computer programs that are running our behavior
Mm.
and our thoughts. And so, very often that is going to be a major thing.
And that's something to realize a lot of, like you said, a lot of people were taught once you get an adult, you can't change that. You can't change those brain waves. You can't adjust that. And to know and to understand they can change and you can change them, you can make that difference. And knowing there's so many tools out there to help make that difference in the brain waves to change it to help us move forward and help us move through some of the things that may have held us back for many years. Because a lot of times the things you encounter as adults that you feel are holding you back are actually things that have been with you for a very long time. And that's something you have been helping people to recognize those patterns
Hmm.
and bring that through. And as you've been working with people, is there is there something people can start using even today to help shift their mindset or to help shift with patterns? Or is it more of the recognition?
Well, the first step is a recognition. The next thing to do is even just reframing their thoughts. So learning to, internalize the past failures as feedback, and also knowing that our brain pretty much processes between 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day enter our brain. Just because it enters our brain does not mean it has to stay there.
Yeah.
So sometimes I even learn to say like if one comes in that's a little critical, I'm like, okay, are you done? Okay, goodbye. You can leave now. And so part of it is just learning to what I call like a pattern interrupt. Learn to interrupt the pattern of that thought and saying, okay, no, I'm going to do something different. Like when a thought comes in that's negative, just even if you're out, if you're silent, or if you're just alone, you could just say the word no,
Mm.
and that's it. Or even in a quiet mind, if it's no, okay, not helpful. So I think that is another step is just saying like whether it's out loud or I wouldn't do that in front of people, then be a little bit weird.
Right.
But yeah,
You don't
I
want to
wouldn't do
speak your
that.
thoughts out loud all the
Yeah,
time.
yeah, no. But if you're alone, you could yell just a no, like when the negative thought comes in, or just quietly in your mind, but saying out loud quietly in your mind, no, not now. Um, and then just taking consistent action is the main thing. But being self gentle on yourself, like how would you wouldn't be this hard on a friend who was doing this, putting themselves out
Right.
there. So also be the same. So I would just be gentle on yourself, and also just celebrate your wins too.
Oh, I like that because I think a lot of times people don't take the time to celebrate their wins. They just go, oh, did that and move on to the rest and start on the whole criticism cycle all over
Yes.
again.
No, and that's exactly it. They're very. It's like a cycle over and over again.
Yes, yes. And that's something for, and a lot of this, like you say, it's recognizing those patterns and starting there and then working your way through them. And I've got to say, I checked on Dr. Albert's website. I've been going through it, and there is so much help on there covering so many different subjects. And then also with your book too, I really encourage people to take a chance and go look at that because there's so much to be learned, so much to be investigated and understood. And really, the more you understand about yourself, you change these patterns. As you had said, you change the patterns every day. You're always changing. And I think before, a lot of times we've been told we can't change, or there's certain things that are immovable and you cannot change them. And as you've been going through it, you've been working with a lot of creatives and different people. Is it, is there what's your biggest, do you think is maybe the biggest psychological barrier? Is it the fear? Is it self-criticism, or is there something else or a combination?
I think it's a combination. There's fear, self-criticism, um, just being hard on yourself. But I would say the biggest thing is fear.
Yeah. And that's something that one thing my team has been saying is that there's fear, our own personal fear we've been going through, but there's also fear on a global scale, on humanity's scale. And
Hmm.
those who are who are conscious and working through their fear are actually working through not only your fear, but also fears that are coming from the collective consciousness also of the people around the world. So I like how you
Yeah,
said, don't be so hard on yourself because you are moving through a lot. You're not just helping yourself, you're helping others without even realizing it.
and also I'm sure you may have heard of this before, which is something I just kind of recently discovered in the past 1 or 2 years of working with trauma. There's this concept known as generational trauma.
Yes.
So where a lot of times our great grandparents and our grandparents will, inadvertently pass on, unresolved traumas that they've had that starts manifesting of our own trauma. So that is something to work through too, and just to consider that is a possibility too.
Absolutely. That's so key because a lot of it is behaviors you don't even realize you have that are coming
Hmm.
from that generational aspect. And I've got to say, I've been identifying a lot in my own life dealing with lack and scarcity and things like that because that's been a part of family, generational parts of family and moving through that. And you've been moving through so much too, and you've been creating the growth mindset. What would you consider growth mindset, or what is the mindset you'd like to see people going towards?
Well, the whole idea of like a growth mindset is like your work in progress.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing is like being a work in progress and just uh, meaning that when I take a growth mindset, it means that there's always room for improvement, but you still should always be celebrating, what you've achieved, or where you've went. Um, the idea here is to not necessarily be hard on yourself, but to just celebrate any and all achievements that you're getting,
Yes.
and know that again, there's always room for improvement, but you're also at the same time, every step that you make, you are acknowledging it as, a win. But okay, now I can do better. And this is why it's always good to be constantly learning, always, adapting.
Oh, yes.
And then when you do get failures or setbacks, instead of like beating yourself up over that, what you're doing is essentially just saying, look, I'm getting better and better. This is an area where I can improve on. And so that's where it's like, okay, I did this, but now what can I do next? And so I think if you have that always learning mentality and that you're always a work in progress, I think that's going to be a major step.
Love that. Because a lot of times the self-criticism comes in and you're like, oh, I'm never going to move from where I'm at. Where instead you're looking at, No matter what happens, you're always learning. And I've got to say, all the people, anybody listening to this podcast or any of yours, Dr. Albert, is they're there because they're curious. They're there because they want to learn. They're there because they want to grow and expand. So, anybody listening to this, there's no reason to self-doubt. You're already learning. You're already on that path. You're already that curious, curious learner
Hmm.
who wants to keep growing. So, your
Yeah, no, you're
mindset
already
has
there.
already
You're halfway
started.
there. So
Absolutely.
that's the
So,
big thing there.
you help so many people with their dreams. What's your next move? What are you
Hmm.
reaching for?
Well, my my next focus is to write more books. That's what I plan on doing. The next step after that is to create more courses and more areas for improvement. So, and now that I've been guesting a lot on podcasts, even starting my own is in the
Nice.
cards too. And this time last year, that would have never been even possible or even entered my mind.
I love how you yourself are looking at what else can I do? And I know everything you've been doing has helped so many people reach their goals, helped so many people change their mindset already, and you're still going and doing more. And I know you'll be reaching even more and more as you go. And what are things you're hoping other people will take back from your books and your messages? What's your hope for that?
What I My hope is just to realize that we are so much capable of so much,
Mm.
and we have all the resources we need to be successful. Sometimes it just may need a little extra help or a nudge to have us realize that we have everything at our fingertips to succeed.
I like that. I think it's really important for people to realize they can succeed. And that's some of this too. And I'm just hearing a niggling from my team on the other side because there are people in this that are listening to this podcast, others that will be listening to it, that have had people in their life that did not want them to succeed. And that was also part of a
Mhm.
mindset that they had, that they don't want to succeed because it will rock the apple cart. It will rock everything in their relationships with the people around them who don't want them to succeed. How do you help people move through taking that on, feeling like they don't want to succeed, the fear of success, because if I do, it's going to change the relationships of people who maybe want to keep you back in a certain area?
Yeah, well, that's a big thing too, and I do have an entire chapter in my book on relationships.
Mm.
Especially in the fear success area. Now, the one thing that I will say with people that are critical, and I've worked this even this in a blog article a while back about the naysayers in your life, the ones that are constantly bringing you down, and a lot of it is not necessarily about you. They're dealing with their own insecurities, and so they're not. It's not that they don't value you. What's really going on a deeper level, they're scared that if you become successful or achieve your dreams and become happy, that you're going to see that you no longer need them and that you're going to leave the family or leave the environment and they're going to do everything they can to hold on tight to you. And that means even, you know, tearing you down if that's what it takes.
And that's part of the discernment that you had talked about before, to discern if they're there for your success or if they really don't want your success in your life. And
Exactly.
that's definitely a hard one to realize, that some people in your life may not want success for you. And that's also something with, I love how you said to use your discernment to see the difference and to recognize those patterns in people, because I feel that is very important for people to recognize. And like you said, it's a projection of their own fears. It's not you, it's a projection of their fears.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's really at the end of the day all it is.
Absolutely. And sometimes people just need to hear that because some people think they're crazy because they're like, why would someone in my life want me not to succeed? But to realize it does happen. They are out there. And to know it's not you. You can walk away from it and go, "Oh, I saw the pattern. I'm moving away from that and going to have your own mindset, your own growth." And that is also part of the fear of success with changing the relationships of the people around you. Is
Hmm.
that also something that you experienced yourself, or were you good with people, or were you not fearful of success?
Well, that would be if I said I wasn't fearful, I'd be lying. It's not necessarily a question that we fear success. It's the identity change. It's just really the change that we're scared of.
Yeah.
It's a fear of change, and the biggest addiction that we have is comfort, staying comfortable. But the reality is, this is something I have to work sometimes on a daily basis. Is just staying comfortable is not going to be, that's not going to make us successful at the end of the day. Is staying comfortable. So it's about learning to embrace being uncomfortable.
Love that. And that's something for people to hear because it doesn't mean it's going to be all, roses and daisies and it's going to go real smooth. There is going to be some uncomfortableness with this as you grow, as you change. And that's something that you help people through with, and like I said, I encourage everybody go to his website because he has so many tools on there to help you along with Albert's book because there's so much there. And it's recognizing people can change. It's recognizing you can move through and be successful and change that to that growth mindset. It's huge, huge going forward. And
Yeah.
do you do you encourage people to be, I keep hearing my team, they're saying this is a time for everyone to be successful in your own right and not to make yourself small in other people's worlds.
Yeah, I know absolutely. I really encourage people to really step outside their comfort zone and to be successful. Um, because you owe it to yourself, I always say, and to the other people around you, because there's a lot of brilliance in all of us, and if we hold it back, we're only, not only shortchanging ourselves, but potentially other people too that can benefit from your work.
Love that because yes, we all do have a brilliance in there that how do you know what it is until you try? How do you know what's
Exactly.
possible? And you yourself have gone from, multiple different ways throughout your life from, a talent agent, from working in improv, from being behind the scenes, from college professor to doing all of these different aspects. You didn't stay with just one and you kept growing with the growth mindset and moving through your own fear.
Hmm. Yeah, and well, that's the whole thing. It's like, well, what else can I do with this?
Yes.
So,
And I love the fact that you're there helping people understand you can get through that. You're blazing the trail for others so that they can move through it. And that's something so important.
hmm,
So is there something else
absolutely.
you'd like to cover before we close for today?
Um, I would just think just being open to ideas and viewpoints and not to be quick to dismiss,
Mm,
because a lot of times it can be easily like quickly able to dismiss things, but and just be to the idea of also being able to, like I said, accept compliments, but also being able to accept help.
uh, that's huge because a lot of people don't want to accept the help because that makes them feel weak. How
Yeah.
do you rectify that where people are saying, if I accept help, am I weak? Am I not being able to do it myself? What do you say to that?
Well, we're not meant to do this alone.
Mm,
Let's take a look at our ancestors, and the especially during hunter-gathering days, the only way they survived is by working together. I mean, that's the
mm,
reason why we're here now. Or even if you look at even take a lesson from our primate friends in the animal kingdom. How do they survive? By being in packs, by being in groups. So we're meant to do things together.
Hmm.
And that means having each other's back when when times are tough. So actually seeking help is a sign of strength, not weakness.
I think that's the so key for people to hear that it is a sign of strength and not weakness when you're asking for help because we aren't meant to do this alone. We're meant to be together. And as a testament to that, look at all of the podcasts that have started, all of the different genres that are out there, and you're seeing this whole collection and collaboration between so many peoples in the world right now. That's a testament right there that we're meant to work together. We're meant to share our voices. And that's something I'm really happy that you have been sharing your voice because it needs to be heard by so many people. And everybody resonates with different people. So, what a beautiful gift that you're able to offer that to so many others around the world.
Thank you.
You are so welcome. And I know I've got to be cognizant. Albert has to be out of here in a little while, so I want to make sure I'm cognizant of that time frame. And I just want to encourage everyone, again, check out his book, go on his website, check out all of the downloadable aspects he has on there. There's classes, courses, and pretty much anything you can imagine is on there that he covers. And I know from my team, they're saying he does an excellent job of covering those subjects in ways to help you move forward into that growth mindset, moving out of the fear of success because everyone is meant to be heard. And it's exciting for Dr. Albert to be here to help people move out of that fear and let your voices be heard too, and let your, as you said, your brilliance shine.
Hmm.
It's so key. So I encourage everyone again, go to his website, and it is Albert. Say your name again because I think I
Sure,
messed it up.
sure. It's albertbramante.com.
Bramante. That's it. Because I'm like, I think I messed it up before. And I
Yeah.
apologize for that.
Yeah, that's one of the things about being Italian. Sometimes we get these long last names that are.
It should be simple, but I
Yeah,
seem to
well, yeah,
struggle
well,
sometimes.
yeah.
But again, go to his website, albertbramante.com, and check out everything he has to offer. Go on Amazon, and the name of your book again is
It's called Rise Above the Script.
Rise Above the Script. And I think that is a beautiful title of a book because we all have a script we kind of put for ourselves in front of us sometimes, and rising above it to create a new script. Oh, love it. Love it. So, with that, I just want to thank you again, Dr. Albert. Thank you for
Thank you
being.
again for having me.
I appreciate all your knowledge. Sharing everything today has been so helpful, and I appreciate it so much. So, thank you again, and I want to encourage everyone, make sure to watch the next episodes of Edge Talk Radio. They are on the first and third Wednesdays of the month at 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And if you've missed any of the past episodes, no worries. You can go on to either my YouTube or Edge Magazine's YouTube channel, watch them there, listen to them as a downloadable podcast. And I just want to say thank you again. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the space. And I want to thank all of you for listening, expanding, and amplifying our universe together. Have an
Thank you.
absolutely amazing day.
Thank you.